There's a truth we rarely talk about, a truth that feels uncomfortable but necessary. Not everyone who cries for help actually wants to rise. Some just want you to kneel beside them and stay stuck together. We grow up hearing, help others, be kind, be generous. And these are beautiful principles. But here's the shadow side nobody warns you about. If you keep trying to save people who've married their misery, you're not lifting them up, you're sinking with them. Let me introduce you to someone you've likely met many times in your life, maybe even right now. They wear struggle like a badge. Pain has become their personality. They are the perpetual victim. They don't just have hard days. We all do. They've built an identity out of being wronged, overlooked, betrayed, mistreated. And their favorite song? Poor me. At first, it sounds like honesty. You think, wow, they're opening up. You feel drawn to help. You offer your time, your energy, your resources. And for a moment, you feel like a savior. You believe your kindness made a difference. But then next week, it's the same story, different villain. Last week, it was their boss. This week, it's their partner. Next week, probably you. Because perpetual victims don't want to heal. They want to be heard endlessly. They don't seek solutions. They seek validation for their pain. Let me ask you a difficult question. Are you helping or are you enabling? Because there's a fine line between compassion and codependency, between lifting someone up and becoming the crutch that keeps them weak. Here's the most deceptive part. They say all the right things. I just need one more chance. I just need a little help getting back on my feet. But here's the truth you've been ignoring. They've been trying to get back on their feet for years, and their legs work just fine. What they've mastered is using your kindness as fuel to remain the same. Every time you swoop in to rescue them, they get more comfortable in their discomfort. You affirm their story, that the world is against them, that they are powerless, and that someone else, you, is responsible for their life. And the most dangerous belief anyone can adopt is this: my healing is someone else's job. Because that belief, that story, is a prison. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Jay, what if this time it's real? What if they finally change? That's how they hook you with hope. But here's what you need to understand. If someone is truly ready, they won't just take your hand, they'll take the next step. So here's the test. Instead of offering more time, more money, more energy, offer them responsibility. Say, here's a phone number to call. Here's a simple action step you can take. Here's what you need to do to move forward. Then step back. Watch what they do. If they say, yeah, but if they dodge, delay, or deflect, you have your answer. They don't want a path forward. They want permission to stay stuck. And here's where it gets hard. Walking away will make you feel guilty. Everything in you will whisper, maybe I should help one more time. But listen carefully. Love is not about always saying yes. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let them face themselves. Because here's the painful truth. As long as you keep carrying their weight, they'll never feel the need to build their own strength. Every time you save them, you block the lesson they were meant to learn. You interrupt their transformation by trying to soften their discomfort. But discomfort is often the only thing that leads to real change. Let me be real with you. I've fallen into this trap. I've poured into people who weren't ready. I've coached, encouraged, mentored, stayed up all night on phone calls, only to realize I was more invested in their future than they were. And it hurt because I thought I was doing good. But all I was really doing was postponing their breakthrough. I had to learn the hard way. You can't change someone's life more than they want to change it themselves. And if they're not willing to rise, you stepping in isn't helping, it's hurting. So here's what you do. You redefine what helping means. Helping doesn't mean removing their burden. It means showing them they have the power to carry it. Helping doesn't mean solving their problems. It means reminding them they have the strength to solve their own. Helping doesn't mean being their emotional punching bag. It means setting a boundary and saying, I love you, but I won't let you drag me down to prove it. Because you can't be someone's lifeboat and their lesson at the same time. So the next time someone comes to you with their latest drama, their endless story, their never-ending storm, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, are they stuck in a situation, or are they addicted to the story they've been telling for years? Because if it's the story, then no amount of help will ever change the ending. Reflection question. Who in your life have you been trying to save, even though deep down, they don't want to be saved? Call to action. If this resonated with you, leave a comment, share your experience, let someone else know they're not alone. Like this video to spread this message to someone who might need to hear it. And subscribe, because we're not done yet. This is just the beginning of your journey into identity transformation, emotional resilience, and clarity. Thank you for walking this path with me. Let's keep going. There's a moment, maybe you've lived it, when you see a name flash across your phone screen and your heart sinks. Not because they're a bad person, but because you already know this conversation will cost you. They don't bring solutions. They don't bring peace. They bring storms. You're dealing with an energy vampire. And I know that sounds dramatic, but energy is real. Your attention, your emotional presence, your inner stillness, these are your most sacred currencies. And if you're not careful, you'll spend all of it on people who are never planning to give anything back. Here's what most people don't realize. You don't just wake up exhausted. You don't just lose your spark. You don't just fall into burnout by accident. You get drained slowly by conversations, obligations, and relationships that leave you emptier every time. You ever walked away from someone feeling more anxious than before you met them? You ever spent 10 minutes with someone and felt like you'd been emotionally bench pressed for hours? That's not random. That's not you being overly sensitive. That's your inner ecosystem telling you this person is tapping into your nervous system and pulling the wires. See, energy vampires don't always show up with drama. Sometimes they show up quietly, soft-spoken, smiling. They don't yell, they drain. They offload all their negativity onto you like you're their therapist, coach, or emotional landfill. They don't want solutions, they want your attention. They don't want change, they want you to co-sign their chaos. And the tricky part is, it feels like compassion. It looks like being a good friend, but the reality is you're being harvested. Let me say this clearly. Listening doesn't always mean healing, and presence doesn't always mean peace. There are people in your life right now who don't need more of your attention. They need less access to your nervous system. They feed off your presence because they've never learned how to self-regulate. And if you don't set boundaries, they'll keep showing up like it's open bar unlimited refills of your energy, your kindness, your time. Now, I get it. You're a caring person. You want to be there for people. You've been taught that it's selfish to pull away. But here's the truth. I had to learn the hard way. It's not selfish to protect your peace. It's sacred. It's survival. Because every yes to them is a no to your purpose. Every hour you spend untangling their drama is an hour you didn't spend building your dream. And if you're constantly drained, how do you expect to show up fully for your work, your family, your future self? Let me ask you this. If your phone battery hit 2%, would you hand it to someone who only watches videos, scrolls endlessly, and never plugs it back in? Of course not. But you do that with your soul battery all the time. You keep answering calls. You keep staying in conversations. You keep showing up even when your internal battery is flashing red. Why? Because you're afraid to be the bad guy. Because you've confused being nice with being boundless. But let me tell you something I wish I knew earlier. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks. And only those who respect your space get a key. So how do you know if you're dealing with an energy vampire? It's not just about how much they talk. It's about how much you lose emotionally, spiritually every time you engage. Here's your signal. If you walk away from them feeling heavy, if you feel like you've just run an emotional marathon, if every conversation is about them and never about you, that's your nervous system raising its hand and saying, this is not sustainable. You can't thrive when your nervous system is on constant alert. You can't grow when your inner sanctuary is a battlefield. So what do? You pull back, not out of punishment, but out of preservation. You say things like, I'm not available to talk right now. Let's pick this up another time. Or simply, I need some space. At first, they won't like it. They're used to the open buffet. They'll guilt trip you, call you distant, say you've changed, but you have changed. And that's the point. You're no longer willing to bankrupt your peace to sponsor someone else's dysfunction. Here's something I remind myself of often. Real friends don't just need you. They see you. They pour into you. They care about how you're doing, not just how well you're listening. If someone only values you when you're giving, but disappears when you need, that's not friendship, that's extraction. And the longer you stay in that dynamic, the more you lose pieces of yourself. Not all at once, but slowly. Your clarity, your drive, your joy, they erode until one day you realize you've been walking around with an emotional limp because someone else kept borrowing your legs. Now, hear me clearly. You don't need to cut people off with anger. You don't need to burn bridges. But you do need to close some doors and lock them from the inside. And some people, they're not meant to walk every chapter with you. Some people are teachers, some are lessons, and some are tests sent to see if you've finally learned how to protect your own energy. I want you to imagine this. Your energy is a garden. Your peace is the soil. Your goals are the seeds. Every time you let an energy vampire walk in unannounced, they stomp through that garden. They don't water it. They don't tend to it. They just trample. You're not being cruel by locking the gate. You're being wise. Because a garden can't grow without protection. And your soul can't flourish without space. So the next time someone drains you, the next time you feel that fatigue before the call even begins, remember this. You don't have to apologize for protecting your peace. You don't have to explain why your energy is sacred. You just have to live like it matters. Because it does. Let me ask you something deeply uncomfortable. Have you ever found yourself working harder on someone else's life than they were willing to work themselves? You stay up thinking about their problems. You map out plans, strategies, second chances. You send them books, podcasts, long messages with your best wisdom, and still they do nothing. Or worse, they do the opposite. They smile, nod, promise to change, then walk straight back into the same fire you just helped them out of. And you're left asking yourself, why do I even bother? This is the heartbreak of the advice ignorer, not the person who's struggling and trying, not the one who's just confused or needs a little push. This is the person who asks for advice but never intends to use it. They don't want transformation. They want a performance. They want you to play the role of the wise friend, the supportive mentor, the patient cheerleader, while they continue starring in the same tragic story they've been living for years. Here's what I've learned the hard way. You can't coach someone who's committed to their excuses. You can't guide someone who doesn't want to walk. See, these people come to you with the same problems every single time. At first, you think, maybe they didn't understand the advice. Maybe I didn't explain it right. So you try again and again and again, but nothing changes. Because advice is only valuable to the person who's ready to apply it. This is what no one tells you. Giving advice doesn't equal impact. Giving advice doesn't mean change. And repeating advice to someone who refuses to grow, that's not noble. It's a waste of your emotional bandwidth. It's like pouring water into a cup with no bottom. No matter how much you give, it never fills. Let me paint you a picture. You meet someone who's always stuck in the same relationship drama. They say, what do I do? You say, you deserve better. Set a boundary. They say, you're right. Next week, they're back with the same pain, the same story, the same tearful call. And when you remind them what you said last time, they reply, yeah, but it's complicated. That phrase, yeah, but, is the anthem of the advice ignorer. It's the subconscious commitment to staying the same. Here's the harsh truth. Some people are addicted to the cycle. They're not asking you for help. They're recruiting you to co-sign their comfort zone. When someone repeatedly ignores your wisdom, they're not just dismissing your words, they're asking you to lower your standard of truth. They're asking you to become a witness to their stagnation. And if you're not careful, their passivity becomes contagious. You start second guessing your own clarity. You start thinking, maybe growth is this slow for everyone. But no growth requires responsibility. It requires effort, consistency, ownership, and that's what advice ignorers fear most. I want you to hear this clearly. You are not a free therapist. You are not a motivational podcast on repeat. You are not a second chance vending machine. You are a human being with purpose, energy, and limits. And when someone repeatedly shows you they're unwilling to evolve, believe them. Because helping someone who won't help themselves isn't service. It's self-abandonment. Now, I'm not saying walk away from everyone who struggles. I'm saying walk away from people who choose struggle after you've shown them the path. Big difference. The people who are serious about change, they take action. They come back and say, I did it. It was hard, but I followed through. And maybe they fall. Maybe they slip, but they try again. Those people deserve your time. Those people are investing in their own evolution. And when you pour into them, it becomes something multiplicative growth that ripples outward. But the person who wants to vent, cry, repeat, recycle their problems like a never-ending soap opera, that's a script you no longer need to act in. I had a friend years ago who would call me every week with a new crisis. Same core issue, different name. Every time I gave advice, they said, "You're so wise, thank you." And nothing changed. One day I asked, out of everything I've ever suggested, what have you actually done? They paused and said, honestly, none of it. But I appreciate you always being there. And that's when it hit me. They didn't value my wisdom. They valued my presence in their drama. So I stepped back, not with bitterness, not with judgment, with peace. And you know what happened? They found someone else to call, because that's how cycles work. When one enabler exits, the advice ignorer finds another. So what do you do when you spot this pattern? You draw a clear boundary. You say, I've shared everything I know. When you're ready to act, I'm here. But until then, I'm stepping back. It feels harsh, but it's actually respectful. It tells them, your life is your responsibility now. Not mine, not anymore. And maybe, just maybe, that's the exact moment they wake up, or maybe they don't. Either way, you are free. Free to focus on people who rise with your words, not just nod and vanish. Free to protect your emotional economy and spend it wisely. You are not here to drag people across the finish line. You are not here to fix lives that refuse to grow. You are here to walk in truth, to love with clarity, and to lead with boundaries. So the next time someone asks you for advice, pause. Don't just speak. Observe. Do they truly want to change? Or do they want your energy to cushion their stagnation? Your wisdom is sacred. Don't waste it on ears that are only pretending to listen. Let me tell you a silent truth that most people carry but rarely speak aloud. You're tired, not because you're weak, but because you've been overgiving in relationships that only take. You keep showing up. You keep being the one who reaches out first. You keep remembering birthdays, checking in, holding space, making time. But when it's your turn to need support, crickets, you're stuck on a one-way street. And the traffic only goes in their direction. There's a certain heartbreak that comes not from betrayal, not from arguments, but from realizing you were the only one trying. You thought it was a friendship. You thought it was mutual. You thought they'd show up for you the way you showed up for them. But the truth was quieter, more painful. You were the entire foundation. They were just passing through. Let me be clear. It's not selfish to want reciprocation. It's not petty to expect mutual effort. That's not ego, it's emotional health. Because real relationships are not about keeping score, but they are about shared responsibility. If I'm always the one pouring and you're always the one sipping, eventually the well runs dry. Here's how one-way streets look in real life. You call, they rarely return it. You support their dreams, they forget yours. You ask how they're doing, they never ask you back. And when you finally need something, anything, their schedule is suddenly too full. Sound familiar? It's not that they hate you. It's not that they're evil. It's simply that they've grown comfortable with you doing all the work. They've made your energy a given, your presence a habit, your kindness a transaction. And the worst part, they don't even notice the imbalance because you trained them to believe that you'd always show up even when they didn't. You see, we teach people how to treat us not through what we say, but what we tolerate. Every time you ignore the gut feeling that says this isn't fair, every time you silence yourself to keep the peace, every time you give, even though you're empty, you send a signal, my needs don't matter here. And that signal over time becomes your role. You become the strong one, the reliable one, the helper. But beneath all of that is the loneliness of being unseen. So what's the shift? You stop overfunctioning. You stop being the emotional unpaid worker. You stop managing their side of the relationship and you start matching energy. It sounds small, but it's revolutionary. If they reach out once a month, you do the same. If they don't check in, you don't either. If they don't reciprocate, you stop initiating and you watch what happens. Some people will panic. They'll guilt trip you. Why are you distant? You've changed. Yes, you've changed the rules. You finally started honoring your own energy. Now here's the part no one tells you. Matching energy is not revenge. It's clarity. It's saying, I will no longer pour into cups that have holes. It's refusing to keep driving down roads that never lead anywhere. It's not cold. It's conscious. Think of your emotional energy like currency. You wouldn't keep investing in a business that never shows profit. So why do you keep investing in people who never pour back? Would you hire an employee who never shows up but still expects to get paid in loyalty, time, and compassion? You wouldn't. So stop doing it in your personal life. Here's something I've learned after years of pouring into the wrong people. When you stop overgiving, you don't lose people. You lose the illusion of connection. You lose the fantasy that it was ever mutual. And that loss, as painful as it is, it's also the beginning of your freedom. Because once you stop forcing one-way traffic, you finally make room for the people who move with you, not just toward you. Now, I'm not saying we should give to get. Love, service, kindness, these are beautiful things. But mutuality is how relationships stay alive. One-way streets will drain your spirit. Two-way paths will nourish your soul. And if you're afraid they'll leave once you stop giving, let them. Because anyone who leaves when you start matching their effort was only there for what you gave, not who you are. Let that sink in. This is what real connection sounds like. I thought of you today. Just wanted to check in. I see how hard you're working, proud of you. I'm here. Not just when you're down, but when you rise. It's mutual presence, mutual effort, mutual growth, and that is rare. But you only find it when you stop entertaining the ones who never reciprocated. So today, I want you to do something powerful. Go through your relationships quietly, honestly, and ask, who pours into me as much as I pour into them? Who only comes around when they need something? Who makes me feel seen, not just used? Because you don't owe anyone endless access to your energy. The most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to stop overextending and start observing. If they miss you when you pull back, they'll step forward. If they don't, they were never walking beside you. And that's not a loss. That's liberation. There's a type of pain that doesn't show up with sirens. It doesn't scream, doesn't beg for help. It quietly breaks your heart in slow motion. It's the pain of watching someone destroy the very life they say they want. This is the agony of being close to a self-sabotager. The person who has talent, opportunity, heart, but who somehow keeps setting fire to their own future over and over again. You give them the job lead, they miss the deadline. You help them prep for the interview, they oversleep. You talk them through the healing, they go back to the same person who broke them. You offer them the key, but they never open the door. Let's tell the truth. Some people don't need saving. They need space to sit with their own decisions. And if you keep trying to rescue someone who's at war with themselves, you'll become collateral damage in a battle that isn't yours to fight. Self-sabotagers aren't broken. They're not lazy. They're not cursed. What they are is afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of success, afraid of responsibility, afraid that if they actually rise, they'll have to keep rising. So they choose the familiar pain of staying stuck over the unfamiliar pressure of stepping up. It's not logical, it's emotional. Because deep down, they've tied their identity to dysfunction. They don't just have problems, they've become their problems. And every time you try to lift them, they cling tighter to the weight that's sinking them. You think, if I just support them harder, maybe this time it'll stick. If I love them enough, they'll change. If I don't give up on them, they won't give up on themselves. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. You can't carry someone to clarity who keeps choosing chaos. You can't do their healing for them. And when you try, you rob them of the very transformation they need to fight for. Let me share something raw with you. I once poured myself into someone who had every chance in the world. They had a door open that most people only dream of. I coached them, showed up, made introductions, built a plan, held them accountable. And for a while it worked. They made progress, started showing up for themselves. But just when it was time to level up, they self-destructed, missed deadlines, ghosted people, lied about follow-through. When I confronted them, they said, I don't know why I always do this. I just can't help it. That's when it hit me. I was working harder for their life than they were, and I had to walk away. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood my help had become their escape, not their growth. Here's what most people don't realize. Every time you rescue a self-sabotager from their consequences, you're not helping them, you're delaying their awakening. Because it's in the wreckage, in the aftermath of their own choices, that they might finally look in the mirror and decide, I don't want to live like this anymore. But as long as you're there to clean it up, they don't feel the full cost of their own sabotage. And without cost, there's no change. Self-sabotagers often want the results, but not the responsibility. They want the business, but avoid discipline. They want love, but reject intimacy. They want peace, but keep entertaining chaos. You give them tools, they misuse them. You give them time, they waste it. You give them grace, they trample it. And when you finally get tired and pull away, they say, you abandoned me. No, you didn't abandon them. You exited the role they cast you in, the fixer, the crutch, the emotional paramedic. Here's the most important thing I've learned about helping people. If they're not willing to do their part, your effort becomes toxic, not transformational. Your support should be fuel, not a life raft. Because you cannot outrun someone's sabotage. You can't chase down their healing. You can't light their path while they keep blowing out the torch. So what do? You get radically honest. You say, I love you. I believe in you. But I will no longer work harder on your life than you do. You stop trying to soften the blow of their decisions. You stop absorbing the pain they refuse to process. You stop fixing things they keep breaking, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back, let them fall, let them feel it, let them sit in the wreckage, not out of punishment, out of love, because only then will they ask the question that leads to healing. What part of me keeps choosing this? If someone keeps punching holes in their own boat and then screams for you to rescue them, eventually you need to stop diving in. You need to stand on shore and say, I'll be here when you choose to swim, but I won't drown beside you. You see, boundaries with self-sabotagers aren't cruel. They're essential, because the more you enable, the deeper they spiral, and the deeper they spiral, the more you lose yourself in their chaos. And you weren't born for that. You weren't born to be someone's emotional safety net while they reject every step forward. You were born to rise, to evolve, to build, to serve. but never at the cost of your own peace. So today, I give you permission, the permission you've been afraid to take. Stop saving people who are committed to sinking. Stop trying to outlove someone's refusal to change. Stop draining your soul to sponsor their sabotage. You're not their answer. They are. And the moment you let go of the weight that was never yours, you'll finally have the energy to rise into who you were meant to become. Final thought, you can give someone the key. You can even open the door, but if they won't walk through it, it's time to lock it and walk away not in anger, but in peace. Because their freedom was never in your hands. It was in their choice.